Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. Jared here with another video review from Fanboys Forever. And today we have an interesting review. It is the new Metal-Boto figure. It was a build-a-figure from the Target exclusive line of 4 deluxe figures from Turtles of Grayskull, which is a mashup line between Masters of the Universe and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So essentially the only way to get this guy is by buying those 4 figures and then putting the parts together. I've already assembled the first 3 figures worth of parts for Metal-Boto, who himself is a combination of Metalhead from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Roboto from Masters of the Universe. Now the only thing that's left is to assemble the rest of the parts that came with the final figure, which was 2-bop steady. And if you haven't checked that review out, be sure to go back and watch it because that was the last review I uploaded. Alright, let's go ahead and complete this guy. So 2-bop steady did come with his other arm here, which we'll go ahead and plug in. There we go. And he did come with both feet and shins. And thankfully they are labeled, so you'll know which one is which. This one is on Metal-Boto's right, and this one is on his left. And without all of his attachments and hookups, this is how Metal-Boto looks. Of course, we'll get into loading him down with all of this other stuff. For now, I'll put that to the side so that we can focus on the figure. And of course, it would be quite foolish not to acknowledge the Masters of the Universe inspiration for this guy. You can see here we have Roboto, and of course, Metalhead is the other inspiration. Metalhead was actually the first Turtles figure that I ever got because the store was all sold out of the regular Turtles, and Metalhead was the closest thing my mom could find. So she brought that home and the rest was history. Still love the Metalhead design to this day. I think they did a pretty good job of combining elements of both characters. To me, he is still more Metalhead than he is Roboto, which is fine by me, but it's interesting that what they had to compromise and what they decided to stick with. One of the most interesting things is that they found a way to keep some of the key action features of Roboto. You can spin that waist around, and of course the mouth flap thing actually turns. So I like that. Not only that though, you can actually remove this chest piece on the front, and it's in there pretty good. There's just a peg that it plugs into, and as you turn the waist, those gears turn as well. So I actually think this is a great look too, but I happen to really like having that front shell on, so I doubt that this will actually leave him very often. I love the gold paint that they have on the crest of the head right there at the top. I think that looks really nice. Moving on down, I love all these sculpted details, especially the little boxy parts over the biceps on the arms there. And they did a great job of adding enough paint to make things interesting down at the feet and legs. I especially like his belt buckle there, which I think is cool looking. And the rest of it is a great compromise between Roboto and Metalhead. On the back, you can see he has his giant gold shell. Like pretty much all the other shells in this line, you can actually take that off, and you do have a sculpted shell underneath it, so that's cool too. And you can utilize this as a shield, so you can see that there is a handle right here. It's not really something I ever plan on doing, but it's certainly interesting that they give you the option to. Not only that, but you probably noticed by now that there's all sorts of ports all over this guy. You can see the ports here on the arms, on the shoulders, and especially on the shell in the back. These, of course, are meant to hold all those different weapons that you saw earlier. However, before we burden them down, we'll talk about articulation really quickly. Since this guy is all new sculpt, it's important that we talk about it. You can turn the head without activating the action feature, so that's cool. That only activates when you spin at the waist joint there, which you can already see that. And then here, the arms go up to a really nice T-pose. You can bring them all the way around, but you do have to kind of watch out for the sides of the head because like you saw there, it can kind of end up turning it. You can rotate at the elbow. The big disappointment is just how little range there is in the elbows. There's not enough clearance there, so you can't even get close to 90 degrees. So to me, that's the big articulation misstep here. There's also some really nice hinges at both wrists that work really well. Not only that, but at the legs, you have some really decent range, I think, especially for Masters of the Universe. And then you can get some really good splits. There's also a single jointed knee on both sides, and that has plenty good enough range. There's a rotation at the knee, and there's a rotation at the boot, and there's some really nice ankle rocker pivots. And it makes it pretty simple to flat foot even really wide stances. All right, let's go ahead and show you how some of these ports work with some of the accessories. Some of the most fun ones here are things like this antenna. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it on the back of the shell so that we can kind of see it coming off to the side there. Another fun way to do it is to have that in the shoulder. And even though it doesn't click in quite as far maybe as I would like, still looks pretty nice. You can see that he does have these drill bits, and I'm just going to put it on the other shoulder. I think that those two are the most interesting accessories to put on the shoulders. It just kind of looks neat. You can also see that amusingly he comes with this robot turtle hand. We can certainly put it back here on the shell where it will be stored for safekeeping. On the gauntlets here we can add all sorts of little kit like this little grabby hand. We can even add this blaster, and maybe on the shell we can add this axe here. So these are really fun pieces for both hands, and there's two of them. These are adapter pieces, so you can actually use these to plug right into the wrist and then plug in some of these other accessories to use them as hands. And even though there's a ton of them we could do, here is just one of the combinations where you can take the blaster and the drill bit, and all of a sudden this is a much more interesting figure than it originally started out as. So I absolutely love the ability to do that. What's also interesting is we do have that spot where the front shell was, and we can actually take some of those accessories and put them there if you want. So you even have more opportunities for customization. I think it would actually be quite neat to have the blaster coming out of the chest right there. So you can really kit this guy up. Here's a fun alternative. You can even use this robot hand that they have, and you have a slightly elongated now arm with a turtle hand. It's funny because then you have this giant turtle shell, and you can even hook that into some of these slots, and it sort of works. I guess it's like a shield, really. But yeah, it ends up being really out there in terms of all the cool stuff that you can do. It honestly makes me quite glad that I got this guy. Look at that, we can even do a shoulder pad with that shell, and it sort of stays in there. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a pretty cool look. The one thing I'll say is that it kind of takes away the fun of putting all this stuff on the shell in the back, because you'll have too much fun using it. So I will show you what it looks like with all of these things kind of plugged back in. And here's what the shell looks like once you put all of those alternative pieces on there. I do think it's awesome that clearly they planned it out to where there would be just enough slots for all those main pieces. The only thing that you can't really do anything with are those adapter pieces for the wrists, but it's not like they're accessories themselves, they're simply adapters. So I find it quite impressive that they were able to get all this stuff on the back, and it really leads to Metal-Boto being a very well thought out and interesting figure. Scale-wise, Metal-Boto is a little bit bigger than our standard releases that we've gotten. Here he is with Duncan, or the Man-at-Arms, whatever you want to say. And like I said, he's just a tiny little bit taller than he is. But the interesting part about this guy is he's so loaded down with alternative accessories and alternate pieces and loadouts that he very much does feel like a deluxe. And I would also say that if Metalhead is kind of the unofficial 5th turtle here, I would say he's definitely the unofficial 5th deluxe Target exclusive figure. So it is pretty cool the way that it all turned out. I'm very impressed. So is he worth diving in and getting the other figures for? Well, that depends. If you were able to get them at retail or below, which would be $25 a piece, you would have 4 excellent figures with probably the trap jaw or mouse jaw, I guess, being the weakest of those. I think the other 3 are absolute standouts, with Splinter Skull and Slaker and Two-Bop Steady all being just absolutely excellent. But yeah, I am very impressed with this guy, and I actually do think that for your $100, getting those 5 figures, because I definitely would count this guy as the 5th, really isn't bad at all, because that works out to getting to $20 a figure, which is pretty much your standard Origins price. but these guys are quite a lot nicer than your standard Origins figures usually would be, and you get quite a bit of bang for your buck. Alright friends, if you've enjoyed today's content, be sure to subscribe and of course like the video. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about how this fusion of two classic characters turned out. I thought it was a really great idea, and I was shocked to learn about this concept because they'd never done a Build-A-Figure in Masters before. Let me know how you think it turned out down below. And with all that out of the way, God bless you and yours, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. Fanboy out.